So people like to think they're so clever, they're beyond all the deception tactics, all the propaganda, especially in this age of information where people on the same medium in which people are getting propagandized and brainwashed, for example, social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere you're getting brainwashed, and people will more or less say, yes, it's true. There are pundits hired by different powers to influence your opinions, influence you yourself. People more or less have no problem admitting that, right? But what they have problem admitting is that there is a high chance that the people that they believe to be the honest actors or the right influencers, the right thinkers, they themselves could be propagating a lie. Sometimes knowing it, and most of the time, you know, are being unaware of. Like they themselves don't know that they're believing in a bullshit. Well, to begin with, let's start with the anti dystopian literature or the dystopian culture that we have in the Western media, Western academia, and in general in the social media sphere. For example, if I tell you to name a few dystopian books that kind of accurately predicted our current situation, you will probably name 1984, first of all, written by a colonialist, a rapist, a racist. So many adjectives to his name, George Orwell. Then you can probably name Fahrenheit for something, whatever, I forgot the name. And you can also name The Brave New World, written by Aldous Huxley. Now, these three more or less encapsulate all the vocabulary that is used when describing dystopias and anything that's wrong with the power system or the system that we currently live in. Like, go watch any documentary or intellectual type yapping content on YouTube, edgy, really corny nerd kids on YouTube making hour-long videos describing what's wrong with the system, using all of these models provided by writers like Huxley and Orwell. Now the problem is, what they don't know is the history and the backgrounds of these people, because if they knew, they would have been far more skeptical and they would have raised their eyebrows more often when propagating their points. For example, to start with, we have George Orwell. So George Orwell is like any other shill, in my opinion. For example, in the current media, you have people who allegedly came out of the mainstream media as being the rebels. For example, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. Ironically, I mean, Tucker Carlson was like the face of right-wing media for so freaking long. Now, when it's cool to be anti-establishment and cool to be a rebellious reporter, he has suddenly changed all of his shit, and he's now like a silly Billy, a hillbilly reporter sitting in a fucking mountains, speaking from the woods. Like his whole aesthetic has changed. And so there is this morphism, there is this metamorphosis among the government voices, who were government voices, like Fox, CNN. No matter how left wing or right wing these medias were or are, they always happen to agree on the status quo. They want to preserve the US government, or any government for that matter, like speak of any other media from any other nation, or any media that has been brought out by like a powerful group. For example, Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. So these guys, these so-called enlightened thinkers these days, and many other essayists on YouTube, like guys who make hour freaking long, like 2-3 hour long, criticisms of what's happening today, what's the problem, what's the solution, and all of their words, all of their narratives, counter narratives towards what's happening is out of the book that is propagated or was propagated by the government. Now, case in being, we're talking about George Orwell. Well, if you read George Orwell's book, for example, Shooting an Elephant, which is not actually a book, it's like a short story, and many of his other works, you kind of understand where he is coming from, okay? He's like the articulated version or the predated, good ancestor of the rednecks who like to say, fuck the commies. I'll go kill all the commies in freaking Korea and wherever, I hate commies without even knowing what communism really means. Like this blinding of your own self by the so-called, like you assume that these guys, the light that they're spreading, the light that is blinding you towards any possibility of there being any credible points from communists or socialists or whatever, like caliphates, whatever, like you just get oblivious to them. You like grow this one-sided like resistance towards any other narrative than the one that you think is the best, or you're getting propagated, you're getting influenced, you're getting deceived, as being the best. I already have the best. Well, that's not how it works, buddy. So let's stick with Orwell, okay? So George Orwell, the literature that he promotes, it pushes a very specific narrative. Just take 1984. In this book, it's like the status quo. Like 1984 to me is the Cold War manifesto from United States against Soviet Union. Okay, it's like the core, simplest propaganda version of what the Cold War United States would have wanted everyone to believe. Like the communists on the other side, according to America and propagated by books like 1984, they are living under hell. Like Big Brother is ruling USSR. That's just hell. You don't want to go there. Just read this book, 1984. It will tell you how bad USSR is. So this biasness, this blatant, covert lie that is being presented to us still today regarding anything that goes against so-called Western sensibility has to be dystopic. Like if in Afghanistan there is no democracy, quote unquote, it's a hell. And people there, if they get bombed, it's justified because they're like so evil. Like just go to watch the interview that Piers Morgan had with three like vlogger YouTubers who went down to Afghanistan and just explored how good their culture is, aside from the things that they disagree with. Okay. Now you can have debate about that, but like Piers Morgan was getting triggered every single second because to him it was shattering, or to all these pundits it shatters the propagandized by 1984, because if someone questions that, what if Big Brother is good? What if there is something, in this scenario, like it's really tough to find anything good about Big Brother because it is a propaganda piece. It will not show anything good about the Big Brother or how he came to power and why perhaps it's needed to have a Big Brother in that scenario. Okay, like if you have this massively rich, weapon-rich country, USA, lined up against you, and it will like decimate you. Talking about the Cold War scenario, like that passive-aggressive battle that happened, there without like direct bloodshed. Like in the Cold War era, the thing that's like really tragically funny is that neither did USA or USSR lost their citizens' lives, but all the proxies of them. For example, the United States will like prop up a dictator in Bangladesh, and USSR will, deploy their troops, not troops, their intelligence assets to topple over the government. And amidst all of this, the conflict that will happen will cause the lives of fellow Bangladeshis. Same with Afghanistan, all the conflict buffer states, we see the same thing. So this like moral indignation that, or this moral superiority that books like 1984 or Aldous Huxley's book goes a level deeper in 1984. It gets into more new age kind of sci-fi horror that, according to America's mouthpiece, Huxley, showcases what hell will get born if if America loses, if the so-called freedom-loving Americans cannot win the Cold War. Okay, so 1984 is just basically uh, a gaslighting book for all the people around the world. Like 1984 teaches you a dystopia that makes everyone except America the villain if they line up against America. Like the state that's being run, or the rebellion that is being run by Goldstein in the 1984 book, is supposed to portray America. Like if you live in Afghanistan, you are supposed to be the, you know, you are supposed, or at least if you read the book, you will support the Goldstein's movement. You will support the right to think, okay, as if you're not able to think. Like there were no literal, or there will be at least not, like literally now America is turning into the big brother, okay? Like the thing that they scared everybody about, propagandized everybody about, like now they're deploying Palantir, like collecting all the data and making like a surveillance state, but legally. So it's a weird gaslighting that these books do, and this stretches far beyond, like from the bounds that we discussed just now. So this is how I hope you really understood what I'm trying to say here, and I would really love to hear your criticism about this point. But the point still remains. Like, if you take the next book, which is The Brave New World, written by Aldous Huxley, and just like how I gave like a brief synopsis about how and what George Orwell was, he was a British commissioned officer in India, and he hated the natives because Orwell hated the natives because they hated British rule. Like, who likes their oppressors? And Orwell is so shocked that people there at Myanmar, at which Orwell was deployed as a British officer, they hated white people there. Why wouldn't them? Isn't that like the common fucking sense that you'd hate whites who are fucking you over all the time, extorting you? So, it's just a fucking lunacy, people are so dumb, like, they think they're so smart, but they're not. Because if they were, they would have questioned all the shit thrown at them. The dream, the scale that people are getting sold is not a right scale. People should start realizing that. But anyhow, Aldous Huxley, for his entire life, he belonged to a very rich oligarchy class, and due to having knowledge about psychedelics, chemical warfare, and elite stuff, he was able to write this book, The Brave New World. And The Brave New World, the future that it predicted was super sci-fi, super horrifying to us. For example, babies getting cloned, like them not having any concept of father and mother because, everyone's just a human, people not being afraid of death, people consuming like a drug called Soma to stay happy all the time. Like that type of very artificial, so-called modern society that we today imagine. Now, just like stay here for a second. Doesn't that describe our today's world led by United States? So these books, for example, now here's the bombshell. CIA promoted 1984, written by George Orwell, heavily during the Cold War period. And the academics and the next level readers, they read the book by Aldous Huxley. So it was a layered propaganda. Everyone got their piece, and these were distributed by the USA themselves. Now, what were they really trying to do? Now, here it becomes a little conspiratorial and shallow, in my opinion, because I can't state hard facts, but I can just share what I think is happening. So the reality, or the described reality from 1984 and Brave New World, it's just future prediction of what USA is currently doing with its innovation in AI, It's heavy, freaking heavy involvement in surveillance technology via Palantir and Peter Thiel. Like they're creating this super massive and very capable system where everyone is tracked. And the evidence for this happening is the genocide in Palestine. They can literally find out anyone anywhere and they can kill them there. Okay, so it's not a daydream at this point. It's not a conspiracy. It is being tested. Like Palantir's weapons are being tested by Israel in Palestine. Just go like search it. Go do your own friggin' research. Okay, so they're perfecting this technology. Like Donald Trump in the recent big beautiful bill, as it was criticized as being a very hypocritical bill because Donald Trump was like appealing to the masses that really embraced the small bill and cutting down of the government expenses. That's why he launched the Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, like that bullshit troll, like that slap on the people's face. It's like mocking people. Like Elon Musk, a billionaire, fucking getting into the fucking government and trying to cut government's expenses. Like, really, man? Really? And it didn't do shit. It just, fucked the government up. And now, in the big beautiful bill, proposed by Donald Trump, and Donald Trump literally like kind of blackmailed the senators to approve the bill, and it is approved now. This bill is allowing like AI tech centers building huge data centers everywhere, and these data centers are notorious for fucking up the nature, the environment, as well as like what's the purpose, you know? The purpose is to perfect this surveillance technology, like literally creating the capacity for any government which will come next after Donald Trump or Donald Trump himself being the big brother. And it's just funny, like the thing that they scared everyone with, 1984 and the Brave New World and the Fahrenheit fucking book. Well, they were about themselves, and they make it so that people get afraid that their enemy, USA's enemy, will become that so-called dystopia. Now, they themselves are that. And people, here comes the fun part. People are now in a cognitive dissonance, okay? Because they're sold this dream of America being the freest state in the world. They have the First and Second Amendment, all the jargon that they have. Well, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, if government wants to kill you, they will kill you, and you won't do shit. Okay? So it is what it is, and people should really wake up to these bullshit literature and like start shitting on these books because they deceived us. Okay? They made us focus on a wrong area. Okay? We should have started like putting our fingers towards USA, not fucking Russia or China. They're doing phenomenal. Like, literally, people, they made so many videos, wrote so many posts, news pieces and shit about China's brutal crackdown on Uyghur people when it was a total fraud. They didn't do anything that the US media said they did. It was a smear campaign against China. And it worked because the media is ran by a very specific group from a very specific ethnicity, which I can't name. And most of all, it propagates what America wants. And it wanted for China to look like the devil, Russia to look like the devil. But now we see like who's the really devil, who's the real devil, and what's going to happen. So, yeah, burn your books by Orwell and Huxley. Fuck them.